All right, Nick. Midday Saturday baseball in September. Late September at that, and it's not going really the way we'd like it to go. It's not really been the season we'd like it to have been, and at this point, we have been discussing for a long time about the whole 15-minute show.
Today the day?
It could be. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's some magic here. We still got one out, top 9. Stephenson at the plate. I don't have high hopes considering we've been goose-egged for what is 17 straight innings now.
Did you hear that? The broadcast, the Xanax and the Reds have scored 3 runs in the last 5 games. Is that true? Yeah, that's true. 3 runs in the last 5 games.
Yeah.
Oh man.
What do you think? I mean, if you're David Bell, you gotta kind of at least be giggling a little bit. I know he's not, but I'm just somewhere deep down he is though. Everybody's got a little bit of competitive spirit in him, and he's he's not rooting against their team, but he's certainly not. I wouldn't say he's lamenting the fact they're struggling.
His head's probably is a little torn because I doubt he really wants Freddie Benavidez to have an 0-5 next to his name as a MLB manager. Like I don't know. I know they were. I assume they were pretty close.
Yeah, it's got to be semi-tough. I don't have any buzzing or anything like that, right? You don't hear that?
No, there's a kid behind you, but
yeah, I am currently on daycare duties, and that's okay. Daycare is in daycare is in like they're my own kids. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. It's just that there are times in life. There are times in life where as you well know, your significant other has to do other things. Is there an unbelievable play that ends this game? No
they
way.
Called him save.
No
they called
way.
him.
Oh my!
Oh, they're challenging it. They're challenging it.
Wow. I think he might have got him.
Yeah. Especially since the M's, I'm sure, want to go home. Although that's New York, they don't really care.
He's out.
They have no souls.
He's out. I'll get the intro ready. He's out.
Swanson made 2 of the better defensive plays in this
all year.
Oh, there you go.
Did they actually call him out? You're ahead of me.
He's out.
All right. Let's do a show, baby.
High drive. Left center field. Racing back to the wall. Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champion. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did. He did. Red win. Win. Line to the right field. Judges the first run ever with 4 home runs.
All right, here we go. Another losing edition of Chatterbox Reds in 2024. At this point, I think it's more or less just kind of comedic humor. You know, when you Molly said it best in the chat. I think you're laughing at this point, so you don't cry. It's a tough pill to swallow down the stretch to see this team kind of fall the way they have, limp into the offseason. Maybe it's the way that it was supposed to go, but it's just as a fan trying to keep up with this or follow along, it becomes a little tiresome. But at the end of the day, the good news is, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's the beautiful thing. And at some point, these things have to matter, Nick. I'm well aware of that. However, we still are in a spot where I would rather have Rhett Lowder throw the ball well like he did and lose than the opposite, which I know many people might disagree with that, but that's still my sentiment. It was nice to see him throw the ball well. We'll have other topics of discussion about Elly here in just a moment. But for the most part, any takeaways that you have overarching of the game before we jump into the box score recap and run through this bad boy?
No, not a fun week of Reds baseball. No. Shout out Freddie Benavides.
Yeah, he'll get one, won't he?
I hope so. That would be tough. And the Reds would, if they lose tomorrow, they would end September 12-13, like losing 5 in a row to have a losing month.
Hey, you know the thing that's crazy really quickly before we jump into the box score recap is that these games are relatively meaningless. We know they are. But the truth is like to Freddie Benavides, if he's supposedly on this list, right? Like if he is, and I don't think he ever was. I just think that's lip service. You have to say Freddie Benavides is part of the whole thing. He's officially off of it now. And it's sad to say that because that's probably not the way that it should be, but that's the way it's going to be regardless. There's 0% chance now Freddie Benavides is the manager of the Reds. If they would have won out, Nick, there's a chance that maybe the fan base wouldn't have gone crazy. They still would have gone crazy. But now it's 100% done deal. He's got 0 chance. So don't even listen to him when they bring his name up. And we also need to get your name on the lower there before I call you Craig.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Where's this at? There we go.
Perfect. But yeah, just wanted to at least bring that up. Not ideal.
Yeah, I don't think he ever had any chance whatsoever, but I just feel for his baseball reference page if they lose tomorrow. That's a tough look.
Not ideal. Maybe you'll be remembered for something though. Like everybody's got to be remembered for something. He could be the guy that never won a game as a manager.
Yeah.
Box score recap.
Let's go. All right, Reds taking on the Chicago Cubs. Game 2 of 3 at Wrigley Field to close out 2024. Another windy day in Chicago, and the offense was certainly at a premium in this one. Rhett Lowder, another strong performance to end the year. Certainly aided a bit by the wind. 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 3 walks, 1 strikeout. Lowder finishes off his season very strong. Reds offense was dominated by Kyle Hendricks in what is likely his final game in a Cubs uniform. He threw 7 1/3 scoreless innings, the last remaining member of the 2016 World Series winning Cubs. He left to a big standing ovation. Still no score going to the bottom of the 8th. Buck Farmer came out for a second inning of work. He gave up a leadoff double. Justin Wilson came in and he allowed 3 straight batters to reach. Alexis Diaz tried to clean up the mess. Could not really. Cubs took a 3-0 lead. Reds went mostly quietly in the 9th. Dansby Swanson made a ridiculous play, his second really great play at shortstop to end the game. Reds just 3 hits on the day and 3 runs in the last 5 games. Reds fall to 76-85 now in a tie with the Pittsburgh Pirates for last place in the NL Central.
All right, the deep drive of the day comes off a fly out by Tyler Stephenson. That's where we're at. Nick has it on here, baby. 97 mile an hour off the bat, 380 feet. But at this point, DSC, they are the leader of all leaders in renewable commodities, specializing in biofuel production, used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Ned Flanders says, this feels like church dinner after the funeral. Nice to see all of you, but kind of sad.
That's good.
Yeah, hey, Ned. It's supposed to be a celebration. Remember? I mean, that's what everybody always says. It's supposed to be a celebration of life. Yeah, celebration of the 2024 season. The only celebrating I'm doing is that it's done. It's done. It seems like a terrible road trip you've been on. You ever been on those where you're just like, I just need to be home. I've been on the road forever, blah, blah, blah. And you finally pull into the driveway and there's a little sense of freshness to you. You're like, all right, that's out of the way. We're almost there. Got one day. But what is a positive as we jump and run through the rundown here, Nick, is Rhett Lowder. I'm not going to kind of overstate what I've already said before. I think the positive thing about Rhett Lowder is that he looks comfortable now. He's gotten himself into some jams. He's gotten himself into some spots, Nick, where you could have said, oh, I'm going to fold, or he could fold. He's not done that. He's been poised, made some good pitches, and got out of some spots. But most importantly, is he going to keep up what he's been doing? No. Are the Reds going to have him be extended a little bit farther than he's being asked to be, extended right now in regards to the inning count? Yes. The 5 innings here, the 4 2/3 there, those can only last so long, as we all know, if you're a starter. But I will openly admit, a 1.1 ERA at this point, 1.17, something absurd. It couldn't have gone better. And I'm looking forward to what 2025 has. And I think at this point, unless there's a catastrophe in spring training or the Reds go out and do some crazy stuff in the offseason, which I don't think they will, he is probably going to be penciled in as one of the 5 starters coming out of camp. And that's nice to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, at least he gives you a little bit more confidence that you can put more of your focus on the offense. You don't feel like you need that starting pitcher as much, although I still think if you don't bring back Nick Martinez, it'd be good to add a veteran. But yeah, I mean, he's been great. He was really great in the minor leagues too to end the year. I mean, his last 12 starts, 0.69 ERA, doesn't get much better than that. So yeah, I mean, he's walked a few too many batters. But the fact that he's able to pitch around them kind of just shows, I think, a little bit of his makeup. And yeah, I mean, it just could not have gone any better for him. I mean, it's wild how it stinks in some ways. Like, if the team would have been better this year, could you imagine how cool of a story it would have been that Rhett Lowder, Jacob Judas, and Nick Martinez were carrying the Reds to the playoffs? Because if the Reds would have been better, those guys have pitched as good as any 3 pitchers on probably any team in baseball in the month of September.
I was just thinking, Junis clearly overachieved based off what the Brewers thought. And I was also thinking to myself, how many teams that they could go back and give away the prospect or 2 prospects that Nick Krall was asking for what Nick Martinez turned in on the back half of this season. I would be willing to bet every single one of them would have done that. And now we sit here in a game that is, what do you do with Nick Martinez? But the good news is that, most of these, I guess, late season moves have some benefit to the Reds. It wasn't just a wash. It wasn't just a meaningless trade deadline. And now you go into the next offseason and the next, regular season with some semblance of hope. Outside of Ty France, I guess, we can jump into the offense now. Ty France, I guess, has kind of cooled off, starting to kind of fall back into the guy that perhaps got him here in the first place. And that's going to be the case for many of these retreads, as we all know. You're just hoping, maybe you were hoping there for a second that maybe a new scenery, a new ballpark. Let's face it, Seattle's not the nicest ballpark to play in from a hitter's perspective. You're hoping that might have been the one thing that stopped France from being able to perform at a relatively high level. That's kind of tailed itself off. So we'll see what this team does heading into the offseason for that outfield spot, because I think it's very clear now, Nick, it's a necessity. I don't even think that it's like a desire or, hey, we really probably should get this or we want this. You have to go get it. I mean, it's borderline criminal if the Reds don't go out and find some semblance of an outfield bat. They needed one, in my opinion, last season. They thought they tried to kind of hide. They thought they tried to get that with Jeimer Candelario. Clearly, that didn't work out the way they probably had hoped. And then now you find yourself into a situation where let's all at least admit openly this front office knows they have to go out and get an outfield bat. Let's hope it's somebody that we all like.
And somebody that can play solid defense. I don't really want them to go out and get a masher if he's a terrible defender. I don't know. I'm so sick.
Yeah,
of
we
it.
we have enough guys that swing and miss too. Can we just get some more like decent? I know people are going to crush me for saying this, like a little above mediocre players that are well rounded. I just the sink or swim players that we have on this team are just it gets tiresome to watch. And maybe I'm just beat down, honestly, and I am. I'll be open. Watching this team long enough, it'll do that to you.
It'd feel better. The sink or swim, I get the sentiment there. It would feel better if you had 9 good sink or swim players, because the problem is you have 4 or 5, and then you have a bunch of non-big league player or non-starting big league players filling it out. So that's when it's bad. It's even worse when you have that. But if you had more quality players, I don't think it matters as much. But Ty France, I think he's probably played his way into a situation where he's going to get non-tendered, but I wouldn't be against bringing him back on a smaller deal. You know, maybe a deal similar to like kind of what I know it was kind of controversial what the Pirates did at the end. Rowdy Tellez was $3 million plus some incentives. I think something like that with France would make sense. Bringing him back under that, where it's like $3 million or so. If France isn't cutting it by May, you can cut him, and it's not a huge deal. But I don't think you could pay him $7 million and cut him. You don't see a lot of teams do that. So I think I'd be open to France on a like basically the same type of deal as Rowdy Tellez got this year. I just don't think he's played well enough for me to be like, yeah, that guy. You have to tender him a contract at $6 or $7 million.
Our first base and our DH have to hit. Period. And that just didn't I mean, you can say whatever you want. That just didn't happen. We didn't even have think about who we've used at the DH spot this year and ask yourself the question, is there not anyone in the world outside of the Reds farm system that we could go get that would just be a better consistent hitter, and you don't have to play him in the field? Like that's a huge luxury to have. You could put a bat in the lineup, and they don't have to play the field. We just put a bunch of mediocre bats in there, and it was musical chairs there all year long. That's just such a horrible recipe for success. And then you add in the fact that the first base spot just wasn't consistent. So those 2 spots have to hit, and we'll see. I know everybody's screaming and yelling about outfield bats, and I think we need one outfield bat, but I more importantly am hopeful that they're going to find some more bats that can slot in to that first base and or DH spot. And I'm going to openly say Candelario will take one of those, because I think CES, and I'm almost hoping, we'll see what the Winter League provides. I'm hoping that he plays third base, because at least it provides some flexibility. If he can play third base, then I know he can play first base, and I know he can DH if needed. But I don't believe in Marte. I certainly am not going to go into 25 with Santiago Espinal in the starting positions. And I love Santiago, but he's a bench player. And we'll see. But for today's sake, for this show, we got a lot of time to figure all that out, Nick.
Yeah. The DH spot for the Reds has just really been a disaster since it came into the fold. I have to imagine the Reds DH has got to be close to the worst in baseball since it started. I'm trying to look it up now. Let's see. Now there's a few worse. Can you believe that? Reds are 25th in weighted runs created plus. Hard to believe that the Rockies, Rangers, Nationals, Guardians, and Royals have been worse.
Think about how bad the Rockies have been if they're playing Coors Field.
Well, that's way to run Creative Plus. They
get dinged for the ballpark. That's right.
They get crushed on that.
I didn't think through that well. But anyways, I don't know. I mean, this team. Well, we just need to flush it and forget it. Just a bad day at the office, bad season. I know people they don't like to hear that, but it's just like, what do you want to make of this? We can't even have like constructive feedback on this season. It's just been a mess.
Justin Wilson might be had the least clutch season out of any reliever that I can remember. I mean, man, anytime that guy's come in and the game's been on the line, or there's been a couple guys on base, he's been as bad as it gets in those spots. I know I pulled up the numbers a couple shows ago. Man, just brutal.
Well, that brings me to another point. I think it's a talking point for sure. It's something that obviously Marty Brennaman got on off the bench the other day and made mention that Elly De La Cruz moving to the outfield would be his preference. We've discussed at length on this show about how we think that Elly's a great shortstop and he should stay. I've been critical of Elly not making routine plays. Certainly at the beginning of this season, he struggled at the very, very beginning, and it started to raise some question marks on my end. But the more you watch it as a full season progresses and the more you see, I just think that you got to give this guy enough time to be able to develop and give himself comfortable. And I know it's easy to look at the errors, Nick. I know it's easy to look at the box scores and be like, oh, look, you can't have a shortstop, one of the better shortstops in the league, making this many errors. The thing I would say is, like, today's actually a shining example, Nick, of outs above average is in a showcase as to why you should value it. In the second inning, he clearly makes a routine error against Horner, and it's a play he needs to make. It's a play that I'd say every shortstop in baseball should make, but let's also face the fact these guys are going to make some errors. They might not make 30, but they're going to make some. The last point I'm going to make about this, though, is in the ninth inning, although it ended up not mattering, he made a play that probably a lot of other guys don't make in time. They might make the play, Nick, like they don't make an error, but they don't get the guy out at home. So you saved a run right there by making that play versus another guy making that play. I guess it all comes down to just what do you value, and the truth is that I don't know if it's, first of all, it's way too early to make ultimate decisions on all this right now, especially if there's nobody to push him out of the position. That's my bigger point to all of this. It would be one thing, Nick, if Matt McClain or Edwin Arroyo, which he's not even close, but my point is, if you had another competent shortstop, maybe even another guy that you thought was, hey, this guy could be maybe even better than Elly defensively, then okay, then there's like a reasonable conversation. But right now we're arguing about taking the quarterback out that's played above average all year long and replacing him with God knows what. And I know everyone's going to be like, well, replace him with Matt McClain. Matt McClain? Dude hadn't played baseball in a year and a half. Who else are you going to put back there? So I'm not trying to go over the top and be like, hey, this is the world's dumbest take. You can't possibly think that Elly moving positions is the right move. I would just say there's more to this than just simply looking at a stat sheet and saying, oh, he made 30 errors. Simple as that. That's my take. I'm not going to get over the moon about it, but that's where I would hope most reasonable fans would be.
Yeah, I think I could give a little bit of credence to like the idea that a guy that maybe has plus 10 outs above average but is more sure-handed is better for your team than a guy plus 14 that makes a lot of errors, like when you factor in what it does to a pitcher and their the mental side of the game and all that. But again, I think you pointed it out very eloquently about how if he is going to this many errors and he's plus 14 outs above average, the ceiling is clearly there. But lost in all of this, the one point that I don't see anyone bring up that I think is the most important point of all of this is, does anyone in their right minds want Elly De La Cruz full sprint after a baseball crashing into a wall? Do you really want that to happen? I don't. Like, that's a real possibility. I mean, do you think Elly's going to You see what happens with TJ Friedl. He can't turn off. You think Elly De La Cruz is going to turn it off? You think he's not going to go crashing into a wall? No way I want him out there risking that. That, to me, is what stops the entire conversation, because it is a lot more easy. It's a lot more likely that you could get injured playing center field than shortstop.
I agree. I didn't really think of that until you brought it up. What was that basically at the beginning of the season when this was also discussed? I just think that it's I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like right now in 2024 we're discussing whether or not, Drew Bledsoe could perhaps get the reins back from Tom Brady when he comes back and he's healthy, And I know that's a stretch. I'm not naive. I know that that's a little bit of a stretch. But I think when we look back in 5 years, we might be like, remember when we were talking about moving the best shortstop defensively in all of baseball year in and year out? A guy that's got 5 gold gloves, which I don't know if the gold gloves actually matter or not, but point is like, I think it'll end up being a moot point, and I'm not going to get, like I said, people can have their takes about it. I respect their takes. I understand making routine plays is very important. It is. And maybe making the heroic play shouldn't automatically just wash out one routine play like it kind of does, an ounce above average. But at the same time, I brought up a point, the most eloquent point I could make is just watch today's game. I mean, he made an error. Nico Horner didn't come around to score, and there's a slow-rolling ground ball in the 9th inning that he charges, makes a smooth play on, has good arm strength, and I think he gets Bellinger at the plate by like a half a second at most. And I'd be interested to know if you put all 29 other shortstops at his position for that specific play, how many of them actually get the guy out at home? I think the answer is probably like maybe a couple at most. And then, again, could you imagine if he does make all the routine plays, right? But he doesn't make that play, but he doesn't make an error, Nick, right? He doesn't boot the ball. He just fields it cleanly, but he's not fast enough and he doesn't throw the ball hard enough to get him out at home. Nobody says, oh, my gosh, Elly has to make that play. They're like, oh, well, he's safe at home, slow roller, so be it. But you don't remember all these plays that he gets guys out on. There was a game, and I don't remember the game, 3 weeks ago, where he made every play known to mankind. And the Reds end up winning a close game, I believe. So it's like, you can't have it both ways with this Elly stuff. And that's all I got. If you think Elly should move to the outfield, I would just say take a step back, watch all the games intently, and maybe you don't want to do that, and that's fine. So then you're just going to have to trust the folks like us that do have to watch this team every single day. He's more than fine at shortstop.
I just don't get having anything about Elly De La Cruz season that's worth questioning or anything. I mean, the guy is 8th in Major League Baseball in wins above replacement at 22 years old. Like, just leave the kid alone. The Reds have a million problems. Elly De La Cruz does not have a single problem of those.
Exactly. Like, I mean, if we're going to try to sit here and pick apart what Elly did or didn't do, it's quite literally, it sounds like we're getting mad at the guy that ruined the bell curve for the math class that did better on the test than everyone else. It's like, well, seems like we're picking on the wrong guy here. I do love how during this show, just random toys are showing up behind my head. So that's cool. Shout out to Rex and I don't even know what that other thing, Miss Piggy or something, but who knows? Anyway, I guess we go to who, what, when, where, and why, and we'll maybe discuss the NL wild card. That's becoming a fun little race.
Yeah, I got a little something I'm watching. I was kind of looking at that. I thought I'd share in case anyone is interested by chance. I move things around and I can't find tomorrow's starting pitchers.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, there it is. My brain's farting. All right. Cubs are TBD. We thought it might be Shoto Imananga, but the Cubs have decided to shut him down. So they're TBD. Hunter Green, we'll get to see him one last time. 3:20 start time. Reds trying to end with a winning September, trying to get Freddie Benavidez win number 1. But Trace, there is something on the line tomorrow. I said before, I don't think it matters all that much. I would have preferred the Reds to win games down the stretch to be able to build towards next year. But the draft lottery odds are on the line. The Rangers play tonight. If the Rangers were to lose, the Reds, Pirates, and Rangers would be tied for the 8th best odds. The difference is if you're the eighth odds, 3.9% of getting the first pick, 2.7, then 1.8. So little bit on the line. If the Reds and Pirates are tied, the Pirates win the tiebreaker, so the Pirates would have the better odds because the Reds had a better record last year. If the Reds are tied with the Rangers, the Reds win the tiebreaker because obviously the Rangers had a better record than the Reds last year because, they won the World Series. So that is what is on the line for that. And then the NL wildcard, Trace, this is what's kind of fascinating to me. So you have 3 teams tied right now, and they all play tonight. So if you're listening to the podcast form, this could change. But they're all tied, the Diamondbacks, Braves, and Mets. The Mets and Braves were rained out, so they have to play a doubleheader on Monday. This is where it gets interesting to me. If all 3 of those teams are tied after Sunday, going into Monday, whoever wins the first game is in the playoffs because both the Mets and the Braves win the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks because the Diamondbacks had a losing record versus both teams. So if that second game would become very fascinating because the second game, you would still be playing for home field advantage, but you're already in the playoffs, so you're certainly not going to burn any pitchers, I wouldn't think. And what a feeling it would be for Arizona Diamondbacks fans, knowing the first game was not actually going to matter at all. It's going to come down to you need one of those 2 teams to sweep the other one. So again, it could get all messed up over the next 2 days, but I really want to see all 3 tied because I love weird, quirky baseball things. And they ripped apart game 163 from me. I hate that they did that, but this could be a really cool, weird, quirky thing on Monday.
I'll root for it too. Why not? I mean, at this point, I'm just here for chaos anyways. And I was kind of peeling over the standings there in the NL Central, the NL wild card. And it's more or less like kind of wild how the win totals have just skyrocketed based off what we were thinking even 3 or 4 months into the season to where it is now. The idea that the Braves might not get in, Diamondbacks have a chance to fall themselves out. It's and then the Mets have the Mets are. I don't want to say I'm rooting for the Mets. It's just there's something about the Mets that I feel for their fan base a little bit. It's like, dude. And I know they've been to the World Series not too long ago, in our lifetimes at least, but Diaz getting hurt in the World Baseball Classic is just I feel a little sorry for Mets fans. So I'm not rooting for them to win the World Series by any means, but it'd be kind of cool to see them sneak their way in.
Yeah, especially after they were like big sellers at the trade deadline last year.
Yeah,
flipping it around and. Good for them. They kind of built a team on a lot of 1-year contracts this year. And they were kind of like in a flux year, and that team was absolutely dead early in the year too. So that's another cool part of it. Like no one thought that team was going to come back. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope it's tied so we have something on Monday. But typically, whenever I get excited about these things possibly happening, creating chaos at the end, rarely does it actually happen. So we'll see.
That's fair. All right, we got one more left, and we have breaking information. Not really breaking, but something we would need to reiterate. We will be live tomorrow in the 9th inning. We are not going to do the traditional Sunday at 9 o'clock. We're going to go live right in the 9th inning, do the full season recap show there, and kind of share some plans of what next season will look like, what the offseason will look like, although they may be vague and not very clear and perfectly painted. We at least want to share kind of some thought process as to what we want to do moving forward. So, other than that, Nick,
We did forget to pay the bills because we're on this one J-bar screen.
Oh, we didn't forget. You just did it.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I wasn't in the middle. But we do it, I think, more than we're asked to, so you know what?
Far more, I believe.
Would you like me to do it?
Let's play rock, paper, scissors.
All right. I like this idea.
Best out of 1 or 3?
Best out of 1.
Okay.
All right. Let's see if I can make sure. All right. Rock. All right. Rock, paper,
scissors,
shoot.
I mean, you gotta put it in this camera. Whoa! What kind of sorcery is this, chat? What kind of?
I don't know which way to go.
Oh,
I don't know which way to go.
He doesn't know how to put it in the screen. He just magically pulled up scissors when I did paper. Some sorcery. Game Time app. If you're looking to possibly go to a game anywhere in the United States, the continental United States, perhaps you're in Hawaii, you want to use it there. I don't know about overseas, to be quite frank, but I do know this. In Cincinnati and the surrounding areas, there are a plethora of things that you can go to. They're not Cincinnati Reds games, but they are other things, which might be a little more enjoyable at this time of the season. Cincinnati Bengals, hey, season's not dead, okay? It's a long season. Season's not dead. You got the Bearcats. You got college basketball right around the corner as well. I don't want anybody to forget about that. We got the Flyers in town. We got Xavier. We got UC. We got the Red Hawks. We got the Norse. Don't want to forget anybody. But, hey, if you're looking to get tickets, download the Game Time app and use the code CINCY, C-I-N-C-Y. You get $20 off your first purchase. And as Nick said last week, I was thinking to myself, I have been to so many sporting events. And some of the best experiences I've ever had have been at very much a sporting event. In fact, one that comes to mind on a day like today is when I convinced myself that money is just temporary. And you can spend that money, and sometimes you think you're spending too much on something, and then you realize 3, 4, 5 years later, you would have spent 5 times the amount more to make sure you could still have that experience. And I convinced myself to drive over to Indianapolis. I don't know if anybody knows, but the 2022 National Championship was held at Lucas Oil Stadium. And I remember rolling up in there thinking to myself, are we going to be able to finally knock off the Tide for the first time in my basically adult life? And I got to tell you, folks, one of the best experiences I've ever had watching Georgia win a national championship. And I got to tell you, too, I used to think to myself it was never going to happen. So on a day like today when you're thinking, there's just no way, the Reds never going to win a World Series, I felt that way as well about these very Georgia Bulldogs who play the Crimson Tide of the Night. And if you're looking to go to that game tonight, download the Game Time app, use the code CINCY, C-I-N-C-Y. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, though. Everybody wants to know. Terms do apply. And then I was thinking, 988, as always, mantherapy.org. Please text or call 988 anytime, confidential. And if you need any help, please, as always, get it. Or someone else. You know, sometimes you need to keep out for your friends. Keep an eye out for your friends. If you know they're going through a tough time, let them know you care about them. Otherwise, it's been a tough season. This hasn't been that tough of a show, but I'm going to have to get back to fatherly duties here soon. I hope everybody really appreciates and enjoys living in the country that we do, because on a day like today, you get to go out, you get to enjoy the rest of your day, and you can watch football, you can do whatever you want, because you live in the land of the free. Nick's Power's about to go out, and you know what? The show's about to go out. So, much love to you. We'll see you for the final time for the 2024 regular season tomorrow. I hope to see you all there. Have a good weekend, everybody.